Everybody, we'll call to order the meeting of the Finance Administration Committee. I appreciate everybody being here. Reverend Coakley, thanks for joining us through FaceTime. We only have one agenda item, so Ms. Jan, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to talk about the audit services.
Okay. We recently sent out notification of, for professional auditing services, requests for proposals, in January. Those were due back in on, back in December. Those were due in on January 7th, 2014. In your packet, you'll see that we have a list of the vendors that we sent notification out to. We used a vendor list that we had received from the City of Myrtle Beach to kind of go off from, as well as we added to that list with some more local vendors. So we sent a notification out to a total of 11 different vendors. We did receive back 2 bids, one from Smith Sapp, Pukout, Crumpler, and Callahan, and the second one was from W. Green and Company. We have evaluated both of these proposals that we've received, and I just was going to kind of touch on a couple of things with each one of those. Of course, Smith Sapp has done our audit for the past several years.
Do you know exactly how long, Jan?
For 17 years.
17. Okay,
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
For 17 years. And in going through theirs, a couple of notes that kind of called our attention was, of course, they do have vast government experience in accounting and auditing, specifically with landfill. Like I said, they are used to working with doing the landfill closure and post-closure, so they have a lot of landfill experience.
Do they do others in addition to us?
They do other local ones. I'm not sure as far as their landfill experience. You know, I know they do the City of Conway, and they had some other local ones that they've listed, but as far as landfill experience, I'm not sure, but I could check on that as well. The other thing that, like I said, we took a look at was their fee schedule. They did give a guarantee with their fee schedule not to exceed the $16,500, which we felt like was important. So that way we wouldn't incur any additional cost. There is a guarantee with that for 3 years, that same price for 3 years, since this is a 3-year contract, which we felt like that was important as well. The last thing we kind of took into consideration with them as well was they are a local firm. They are here locally that, you know, we can utilize, you know, quite easily if need be. So that's kind of some of the points that we looked at with Smith Sapp.
And how does that fee schedule compare to prior years?
Last year, their price guarantee was $17,500, so they did come down $1,000.
Thank you.
And they have been at the $17,500 for the past 3 years. W. Green and Company, they are out of Whiteville, North Carolina. As you'd see, they weren't even on our vendor list, so that I was kind of glad to hear that, you know, the word did get out to other people. We took a look at their bid. They do have some government accounting experience. Probably one of our considerations here was the fact that they had not done anything in South Carolina other than, I think it was in Greer, South Carolina, they had done something. Most of their work was in North Carolina, so they had very little South Carolina experience. I didn't see where they had any landfill experience, which we took into consideration. Their fee schedule was a little bit different. It was more tiered for the next 3 years, and there was no guarantee. They also had written in, you know, some additional fees if need be, that type of thing. So I was a little bit concerned about the fact that there not being any guarantee. Their price was a little bit lower than Smith Sapp, but without the guarantee, I didn't know what kind of fees may be built in, you know, beyond what they normally do with coming and presenting to the board, that type of thing. So those were kind of the different points that we took a look at and kind of went in our evaluation process. Like I said, that's our recommendation is for, you know, is to go with Smith Sapp for a 3-year contract. But like I said, I'll take any questions, answer any questions that the board may have, you know, concerning this.
Do we usually do a 3-year contract? Is that what you've been doing?
Well, we haven't, like I said, we normally have a contract with them, and it has been for 3 years, and then you can add additional years. We have not had a contract with them in several years. We've just, because it's fallen under our consulting is what we've normally, so we haven't had to go out on bid for it, so we haven't had a signed contract with them for a few years.
Okay.
But that was kind of the standard when I evaluated last year and I talked to some of the other cities. Normally they do a 3-year. Some of them do a 3-year plus additional 2 years extension if need be, but we decided we'd go with just a 3-year.
Okay. And I read, when I was reading their letter of transmittal, I'm getting the same thing that our last one was, that the accounting standards generally accepted, they will not express an opinion or provide any assurance on the information because the limited procedures don't provide us with sufficient evidence to express that. That was one of the problems that I had when I first, a few months ago, when that was being passed. And I know that's the general accounting, and I know that's generally how that is done. But I would still like to see some opinion or something expressed as to what they're doing. If they're going to do a management discussion and analysis, a schedule of funding progress for the post-employment health care, schedule of revenues and expenses, schedule of department expenses. If I expended $15,000, $16,000, $17,000, I would want an opinion. I would want to know what I was doing right or wrong. I would want to have a suggestion. And I realize this is the normal way everyone does business. I listened to the county's auditor tell them in 10 minutes at county council, but I have a problem with me expending that kind of money and not being able to have an opinion if they're not going to be doing that much as far as that's concerned. And I'm not real sure the other people that expressed an interest in this, there were a few things they had in here, and I'm wondering, there were some questions. I was wondering if someone from both firms would be here today, and they're not. But from the other firm, the thing that I really wanted to know what they meant by, they said they can look at 100% of the transactions and or account balances, and if needed, confirm 100% of those transactions with our outside customers and or vendors. I'm not sure the other firm has been doing that, and that is a lot of work. And if they have computers set up to be able to do that, that is truly amazing. I think that'd be a lot more money. Our money be spent better for a whole lot more work than what we've been getting. So I guess both of them I'd like to have questions answered, because basically from what I see, if they can confirm 100% of those transactions, they're giving me the information that I would rather have than just this regular audit.
Okay.
Would Smith Sapp not do that same thing, though? I think that, I think we might be talking about two different things.
Mm-hmm.
The 100% transactions, I think Smith Sapp would do that very same thing. If the board desires to have a more thorough, almost an investigative audit rather than the standard audit that everybody gets, then I think we could certainly get a price on that to have that done. I think that would be a lot more thorough and would include probably employees at all different levels in the organization being consulted with and interviewed, but that's certainly something that if the board so desires to have either party give that quote and what that would cost. But I think what they're talking about is exactly what the transactions, Smith Sapp's going to do that anyway.
Yes.
They're looking at all that. They're just not going to give an opinion on, most of it's management decisions, how department heads are spending their money,
Yeah.
and whether it's wise in utilization of public funds, that kind of thing, that would be a very thorough investigation. And I'm not sure what that level is. I'm sure both these groups could tell us at the
Right.
next level. In my experience, what our company does is we allow the accountants to determine on their own which area to go look at.
Right.
They don't tell us, and we don't want them to tell us beforehand, but
Right.
they'll show up at, food services, and they'll go through completely in food services one year and make sure that the paper flow and transactions and everything that's done in that one department, and then the next year is probably something different. But as far as doing that for every department, company-wide, every year, for us, it's not feasible.
Right.
And so, But
Well,
I think we're,
Yeah, the cost wouldn't be feasible to do that, and that's one reason why it looked like their computer, the way they explained this, that this would be set up would be something different than what they did that would give a whole lot more information. That's my problem with neither one of them being here.
right.
Is that they can't, answer that. The other thing I just had a question about, our partners have been performing audits for over 25 years, including single audits, non-profit, and governmental entities. If we're only going to get a basic audit, would it matter whether they had landfill experience or not? If we're not going to get anything but just what a basic audit does?
They need to go, they have to go through classes in order to know how, when they check our closure and post-closure funding, and to make sure that our financial assurance is correct, they have to know how to calculate those numbers.
Okay.
So Smith Staff, I don't know about, and this firm doesn't indicate whether they do or don't,
Okay.
but Smith Staff and them had to go to understand how you calculate closure and post-closure so they could verify those financials.
Verify those funds. Okay.
I don't have my prices in front of me. What is Green charging us?
Green has offered for the first year between $14,000 to $15,500. The second year, $14,250 to $15,750, and the third year, $14,500 to $16,000. And Smith Saps was $16,500 guaranteed for not to exceed that for 3 years.
Now, we definitely could ask both of them to give us an idea of what their cost was to be looking at, or how would they charge us to look at 100% of our records. I mean, we can ask both firms that question, and I think what they'll end up doing is giving you an hourly figure.
Right.
Would it
Right.
be reasonable to ask both groups to attend the board meeting, so members could ask those questions directly to them and have,
We could
We can
definitely.
do that.
okay?
Also, I guess with all of the information, like Target and people going out, I was looking at their insurance information. Do you think that is enough to guarantee if, through them going through our information and their computers, if that information got out and was used differently? Is that a reasonable insurance?
On which one?
I think the latter guy's the only one that even gave us an insurance, said 1 million to 2 million in the aggregate.
All of the
Liability
companies
insurance.
that work for us give us coverage of 1 million to 2 million aggregate.
So that's normal?
Yes.
Okay.
Standard and required
Yeah,
in the,
standard required case they have. And how do you feel about them taking that information out of the office? Is there a lot of information they come in here and get and take out of this office?
Well, and they do. They maintain records. They keep some copies of things, but they primarily work from our hard copies. Like I said, they keep very few copies of too much. Like I said, basically our financial statements is mainly what they keep. There's maybe a few work papers or whatever that they generate, but most of our basic information we give them, we keep here. They may, like I said, they make a few copies here and there, but it's very little, really. It's most of their working papers.
Okay.
Basically, what they do is come in and take our conference room and set up, and then they walk back and forth, and I want to see this, or I want to see that, and that's what they go through. They do tests, and as they test things, if they got any questions, they go through and ask, and do it, and they work here out of our administrative conference room.
Okay.
have there been any concerns with Smith Sap and their prior, I mean, obviously they've been doing 17 years and have a pretty good track record, but are we aware of anything that concerns with their group that, from an accounting standpoint?
No, sir, not that I'm aware.
I'm not either. I just want to make sure, I think it's good to go through the process and obviously, looking at the price as well. I don't want us to get too comfortable with one group and say we're never going to go out and price and,
Right.
Right.
but there is something to be said about the familiarity with our business and the trust factor
Yeah.
that, in dealing with the local group.
Yeah, well, they know the particulars of the SWA and a lot of history and the way our books get looked at. So, I think it really our books get evaluated all the time by different types, individuals or companies or whatever. And I think we know what they want from us most of the time, so we're well prepared in giving it to them. I do agree, going out to bid, the good indication is they went down $1,000
Right.
on their pricing, so
Right.
I think that was a good thing. But every company's got something differently the way they do things, so. Of course, we're comfortable with Smith's app and hadn't had a problem, but they work for the board, and that's what we're here for today, is to.
It would be interesting to know, before I want to make a decision with Green on what their track record has been on holding to their best estimate. In some cases that's the range they're given, but they also don't guarantee that number. And if there's something that, especially not being familiar with the authority, if there were additional time needed or questions that had to be asked, or I'd want to know the track record of, is that range pretty standard? Are you going to normally, 90% of the time you're staying within that range? Or, if we talk to some of the people that they gave as references, would it be, well, yeah, we anticipated it to be 14 to 15.5. It actually ended up being 18 because, it just took more time and they needed more information. We had to provide it to them, and it would be interesting to know that if we got to that point.
Well, and I utilize, our auditor throughout the year. Like I said, he does review our financial
Right.
assurance. If I've got phone calls on different things during the year, that's one thing I have to say. I do utilize him quite often. We've never been billed for any additional calls or, any research he's had to do for me on different things.
Yeah.
So that's always been an important factor.
And a prime example of using them was that I can think of is that when we did the C&D recycling factory, to make sure that we booked everything that went there, and then not to double book the revenue, because you're carrying it across the scales, then you're carrying it to the C&D factory, and then you're bringing it back across the scales, what was not able to be recycled, and it going back. So make sure you post that revenue so the auditor could track it. We called them to make sure that we were doing it in a way that they could audit it and make sure it was correctly done. We do that a lot.
Store, and,
Yeah,
it
the
was
store.
very important in helping us get the store set up because of that being an agreement, not necessarily a component of the Solid Waste Authority. He was very helpful in getting that set up as well.
Well, I think there's a good thing and a bad thing. 17 years, obviously, they know you and they know how things are done. Then again, occasionally after 17 years, you might like to have fresh eyes looking at what's being done. But if I was going to go with a different group, I would think I would be more comfortable with a 1-year contract, not a 3,
Right.
until we saw what happened with that. And there are a lot of questions I'd like to ask both of them.
Okay.
So,
And my disappointment is we didn't get more response. And
Very.
Jan and I
Yeah,
talked
I
about it,
agree.
that,
Yeah.
there was a long list, and I think the county didn't get you their vendor list,
Right,
but we
I had
used,
requested the counties as well and didn't
we used the
receive it.
city's vendor list, and there was a lot of people on there, and I was hoping we would have a half a dozen or more that we could do the comparison with, because
Yeah.
it's a good exercise to go through. I
Yeah,
don't
it
want us
is.
ever to get into that routine and comfort level where it's just automatic, and then
Yeah.
things can tend to get out of hand if we allow that to happen.
Is there any reason, Jan, that we this actually needs to be approved at this board meeting? Or if we put it off to the next board meeting, would that cause a problem where we could get them in here and let the board, the committee
like to
talk to
talk
them?
No, that's not a problem. Like I said, I can notify. I'd given them kind of a date reference in the packet or whatever, but that's no problem. I can contact both of them, let them know that we're going to be pushing the dates out. That's no problem. That way they can be here.
I'd like to ask another question because I'm not really sure. Do we, by law, have to do this every year, this general audit?
No. Oh, the
Yeah,
audit.
yeah,
The audit,
yes.
yes. I was
You-
thinking of going out on bid.
No, but you have to do this thing by governmental.
Required.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay, I was just thinking if you didn't have to do it every year and you did it every second year, you could get more information with the same amount of money, but you can't
required.
do
It's
that.
required by state law.
Okay. But I would like, if it doesn't have to be now, I would like to have another meeting and speak with the two people involved. And get some clarification, really, on some of what they've put in here.
Would you like to just set up another committee meeting and have them here? And then we can take this to the board meeting
Yeah.
in February?
I think y'all need to feel comfortable with it before we
Right.
push
Right.
it to the board.
If-
Okay.
Yeah, if that, from a timing standpoint, is not a problem, I would recommend we do
Shouldn't be a
that.
problem.
Okay.
Like I said, we're not locked into having to have a contract in place. like, City of Myrtle Beach, different places, we're not required, so that's not a problem.
I think, how long has Smith Sap been doing Myrtle Beach?
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
they had told me, but it'd been, I want to say something up close to 10 or 20 years.
They've been doing the City of Conway's for probably just as
Well,
long.
I'll be honest, I have a problem in using people, taking money outside of the county, the municipality, the state, the whatever. If we're within reasonableness and everything's going fine, and I think there are different questions you need to ask of different people, and some of what they've put in here looks to me like it's different, but I need the explanation. But if it's the most reasonable thing, I don't like to see money go out of the county
Right.
either.
I think we also need to try and get Green to give us a ceiling price too.
I agree. They need to give us a price they're not gonna go over, that we don't have to worry about doing, because, I don't want an open-ended contract. I wouldn't do it personally if we didn't come to an agreement, so I think they need to be able to give us a ceiling price on what they're doing, that it will not go over that amount of money.
Okay.
And if they don't want to, I have a lot of heartburn with that.
Well,
And Janet, might be a good idea for you to talk to them about some of the questions you have during the course of the year, so that they can include that in it as well. Make certain that
Okay,
our guaranteed price covers whatever calls you need to make during the year.
okay,
Yeah, they would need, I think they had something in here that said they were not charging for travel and some of the calls and
Right.
whatever, but they need to be more specific.
okay.
And I don't know, but what I wouldn't want some references from them.
Well,
We
they-
have
They
some.
did
They
leave
gave-
some,
they
yeah,
did.
but most of them are in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I think Greer was the only one, but
only
Robeson County, I saw, a lot of the North
They-
Carolina, Albemarle.
Do we check those references? Have you checked those?
I have not, but I can
Okay,
surely contact some of them
okay.
in the meantime as well.
I think Donna Rogers at Sunset Beach probably be a good one to talk to.
Probably so.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember her or not, but
Yeah.
she's been the finance director there
For a long time.
Any other,
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we hold another meeting in which we invite them in, so they can answer our questions directly before making an answer.
okay, we have a motion
Second?
and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
So we will schedule another committee meeting, invite both parties to come in, try to get them to present some information, additional information beforehand that can be distributed to the committee members, and then at that meeting, we can ask the questions, and then at that point, get comfortable with the recommendation back to the full board.
Okay.
That sound good to everybody?
Yes.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any further business
No, sir.
from the committee, from staff? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Hope everybody has a
Have
great day.
Thank you.